Hello and welcome to this beard clipper video. This video is the next in a series that I'm thinking of as the chopping block dioramas, because I'm building these on top of cutting blocks or chopping blocks that I found, nice wooden ones that make really nice bases for dioramas. It's also part of my 3D print adventure as I've been learning to 3D print and making some cool things, and I had a lot of fun with this one. Now I think I've got the file. I think I should be able to link it in the description below if you want to go away and do this yourself. But basically the idea of these is animals and people together and putting them in cool dioramas. Quite a simple thing really. I hope you enjoy it. Let me know what you think in the comments below. I love reading your comments. I reply to every single one and they really do motivate me to keep going. So don't be shy, do be commenting. That's what I was trying to say. And that will put a big smile on my face. So thanks for watching, really appreciate it. I hope you enjoy it and I'll see you again at the end. Well, now that I've finished man cuddling dinosaur, I'm going to start the next in this little series that I'm doing of 3D prints that I'm putting on these wooden chopping board bases, and I'm really enjoying it. So I found this, 3D printed it. I will try to get the file linked below. But yeah, so a girl on a bear, and I'm going to paint that up, which I'll do not on camera. I'll just get it painted. Won't take me very long, it'll be a very simple paint job. And I'm going to put it down on this base, and it's going to be another heavily wooded type of effect, but I think it's going to be slightly more 3D, so I'm almost certainly going to be putting this on top of a cliff, or I'm even thinking about maybe really incorporating the base into the rest of the diorama and maybe having a stream and a waterfall. So there we are, those are my thoughts. So introducing another little project. I know I'm starting quite a few at the moment, but this one's going to be quite quick. I'm just really enjoying it, so keep cracking on. This is what it's all about. It's all about having fun and developing my skills, and this is going to develop my skills because I'll do the waterfall and work out how I'm going to actually do that onto this base. So yeah, it's a really cool print, printed out right nicely. It's free, it's low poly, but yeah, it printed out nice enough. So yeah, let's get this done. Next time you see this, it'll be painted and I'll be working on the base. So during the week I've actually managed to get the girl riding bear painted up in my 22 minutes for 2022, which is what I'm doing this year after doing 20 minutes last year. Yeah, I'm pretty happy. Not brilliantly happy with the paint job, but it's okay. What I'm going to do is I'm going to mount her onto this chopping board here. I was thinking about putting it onto the large circular one, but I decided against that just because I think it's going to look a bit nicer. And what I'm going to have, the idea I've got is that it's actually going to have a cliff, so it's going to be quite high up, and it's going to have a stream coming along and a cliff, and potentially a waterfall coming down into the stream, and I'm potentially going to cover most of the wood, but I'm thinking about either maybe like routing or carving into the wood in some way so that the stream or maybe even the stream bed will taper out into the wood, because I do like to keep showing the wood on this series. But she's going to be on a cliff, there's going to be some trees around her, a waterfall going down to a stream basically, and that's the plan. But yeah, very basic paint job. A little bit of contrast paints used. I'm trying to get used to those. So contrast paints on the bear and on the ground. The ground was just shaded. That will obviously get bedded into the terrain. And I tried to go for a darker skin on the girl, but I don't know how well that's worked. It's okay. I'm not too unhappy about it, but the main thing is the scenery around it. So next thing I'm going to do is start to build up the landform. So I'll use insulation foam XPS to build up the landform, carve it down, work out how I'm going to do how much of this I'm going to keep the display, how much of the wood I'm going to keep, and then yeah. So let's get some XPS and start sticking it in place. So I've been thinking a little bit about this diorama with Girl Rides Bear, and I've worked out how I'm going to do it. So what you can see here is I've got an old offcut of some expanded polystyrene, and while it's not going to sit exactly that far forwards, I've clamped it in place so that I can mark out where to trim it, because I want it to be the full width of this piece of wood. I'll probably mount it a little bit further back. If we have a look, girl and bear will fit nicely here, so I can see where I can probably push it a little bit further back up the handle and maybe do some carving around. But what I'm going to have is, as I've said, I'm going to have the stream coming down, and my idea is I'm going to try out my UV resin, which I've not used before. So I've got this UV resin which I'm going to make use of, because I'm going to do it at Waterfall and then have the stream coming down and actually just have the stream running over the wood. I think that'd be really, really cool. So I might route out a little bit of the wood and have the actual resin going on the going into the wood. So the scenery and the terrain blends with the wooden surround, which is what I'm doing on all of these builds. So a lot of talking there. What I'm going to do now is cut this. So I'm going to mark where I want to cut using a marker, and to be honest I can probably cut a little bit inboard of that. That's probably very much the outside of where I want to cut. So with that marked, I can use masking tape to make sure that my hot wire cutter stays straight. So as I say, we can probably be quite a little bit less panicky about actually going along that, but I do need to make sure that my tape goes in. Oh, got a flex to the other side. There we are. So what I'll do is I will take that to my hot wire cutter and trim down those two lines there, and then that can be glued in place. Like I say, I might even shape it a little bit more, but that can be glued in place on there. When that's set, then I'll be able to potentially, I might do another level. I'm not sure how high I want it. I kind of don't want it to go too high because it'll be quite bulky to display. But then the go riding bear can sit on here, a stream can meander in, go over a waterfall, a little bit of terrain at the bottom, a little bit of scenery at the bottom here, and then the stream can go off the corner over the wood. So that's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to do the cutting now, get that glued in place. I'll probably glue it down either using the white fixed glue, the super strong glue, or PVA, one of the two, because this stuff and wood does glue together nicely with PVA. And when that's all done, then I'll bring you back for the next step, which is going to be actually shaping this and working out exactly how the waterfall is going to go. The other thing I've got is I was setting a fire the other day and I pulled out a load of bark. This is my preferred method for making cliffs. I'm not sure whether I'll actually use them or not, but I got a bunch of bark which I can potentially use to glue to the front here to make rocks. Now the other way of doing it, which I might end up doing if this doesn't look right, is using Luke's modelling compound, but we'll come to that. First things first, let's get these cut, get it glued down, get this shape right, and then we'll do the next steps. If any of you were then shouting at the screen saying, "Beard, you've got your masking tape in the wrong place," of course I had. So I fixed it, I caught it in time. The masking tape needs to be protecting the bit you want to keep, and it wasn't. So just make sure that you don't make that stupid mistake, or if you do, make sure that you catch it in time like I did. So I'll go and cut the other side now. Alright, so let's get the little stream cut in and then do some of the markings for the cliff. So I've got my Hot Wire Foam Factory router here, and I'm just going to very carefully draw that along that line. I don't want it to be too wide, I don't want it to be too deep. I just want it to be a little streamlet, a little rivulet. If they turn the power on, that would help, wouldn't it? Why isn't that cutting? There we are. So we're going to draw that along that line, like so. And there it is. Honestly, a hot wire cutter is such a good thing to purchase if you're making things like what we do. They just make such a difference to the speed at which you can do things like this. So you can just burn in a very quick, ruggedy stone look into a flat bit of polystyrene like this, and yeah, it'd be not a very nice process this if you didn't have the hot wire cutter, because this white foam just doesn't like to be cut with a knife. So yeah, just like that, very quickly.
we've got ourselves a nice texture, and we've got it without bubbles and without too much mess. So there we are, just little bits and pieces. Makes it into a little bit of a rocky outcrop. So now what I'm going to do is actually I'm going to stick the figure to the top, because then I'll come along with some modelling compound and my other textures, and I'll build up the level so that she's no longer sitting on the round thing, so that all of this is blended in, and then I can come along and do the finishing. So I will use, as you probably guessed, my Moment Fix Extreme to do this gluing, because that's going to give it a good solid stick, and it also has a good grab, so you can pretty much move it around and it won't fall off, as long as you're not being too stupid. So just smear a bit of that on the bottom like so, and then need to work out and make sure actually that I get this at the right angle. So I think I want the bear to be facing forwards and her to be looking a little bit off to the side. So if I put that like that, there we are. We have our model in place. So I'll let that go off for a little bit. It's just before work now, so I haven't got very much time now, so I'll let that go off for a little bit, and maybe lunchtime I can come along and can do the modelling compound, get the stream kind of like, I want to have some modelling compound just coming out a little bit at the bottom, and then the stream running in clear over the top. I still don't decide what technique I'm going to use for the stream. I do have the UV resin, which I've not yet used, but I've also got things like this, which can be very good. You can smooth that out with alcohol, or I've got the usual kind of silicone sealant that I use as well. So I'll decide on that while I'm working, but the next thing is going to be, once this is set, is to do the modelling compound around the top and the base, and then move on from there. So yeah, a little bit of progress. Girl Riding Bear is coming on nicely. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to put the modelling compound around here, and also a little bit around the base of the cliff. I'm not going to put modelling compound on the cliff. I will do the technique with the grout on that when I do the texture over the whole of it. So yeah, so I'll just pop some music on, and you can watch while I do this. It's a technical downloads, but I may as well show it. So yeah, but just mix up some modelling compound and apply it. So yeah, let's get some music on and get going. Next step for this is to apply the texture. Now I said I was going to use the grout mix, but I've decided against it. I'm going to go for the sand and watered down glue technique. So I'm also going to do two different grades of texture. So at the moment what I'm going to do is I'm going to put paint on PVA glue, watered down PVA glue on the rock face, and I'm going to put my smallest grade on there, and this could take several applications I think to get it right. So paint that on, and then just off camera to be a bit easier, I've got my sand, so scatter that all over, shake it off, and you can see that we have the beginnings of an application there. So anywhere where I've missed, I can come in, drop a little bit more glue, drop some sand specifically on that area, and there we are, you can see that's covered up. So I'm going to take that technique, I'm going to fill all the gaps and then let that dry, and then probably later tonight or tomorrow I'm going to come along and do the rest of it with the next size of sand up, because this is going to be obviously my rock face, which I can then paint in different colours, and then the rest will be the actual dirt that is being covered, and I am going to paint it over the top of the plastic as well, so it will be continuous between the modelling compound and the base that the model came with. So I'll get that finished, and then I'll bring it back when I come to do the next grade, which is going to be easier because it's not quite as lumpy, but yeah, a little bit more progress on that. This has dried quick enough that I'm now going to use the same technique but slightly bigger stones or gravel or whatever you want to, sand really. My sand is actually taken from builder's sand, which we have because of the renovation that we're doing. So it is literally sifted builder's sand. It is not expensive, it isn't special. So what I'll do, paint a little bit on. I won't do all of this on camera because it's basically the same technique, but paint a little on, making sure it goes where I want it to and not where I don't want it to. And then what I have over here, if I just lift it into shot, is my big bucket. And one of the things that you find with builder's sand is you end up with a lot of this size. As you can see, I've got lots of this size and far less of the very fine sand, which is what you use the most of. You obviously use the most of the fine sand because generally you're looking for a fine texture. But when you've got a slightly bigger scale like this, you can maybe get away with fine sand. So yeah, it's as simple as that. So I'm going to do that across here and across all of the top, and again I'll touch up any areas which don't get any coverage, and then what we'll be able to do is we'll paint it. But I'm going to get this all done now, and yeah, I'll bring you back for when we get to the painting stage. So it's the next day now, and what we're doing now is we're going to seal this. So it's just the same PVA and water mix and painted all over the top. You can see that there's very little flicking off, and it is actually quite well glued on, to be honest. I'm pretty pleased with that. It can go on less securely than that, but this is still a good process to go through, even if you find that things aren't really moving, because it really solidifies it and makes it more hard wearing. So I'll do that and then leave that in the sun. Don't hobby on it on Saturdays normally, and then later on we'll come to painting. This dried really nicely in the sun while I was out. Rosie is now hopefully having an afternoon nap, which means I have a little bit of time, and so in that time I'm going to come and paint all of the base black. Now I know that might seem weird because this is going to be soil, but you'll see what I mean, because what I do is I paint it black, which gives it a really nice base, and then after I've done that I come along with dry brushes of brown and what have you, and it gives a really nice look that I like a lot anyway. And you can really brighten up from a black base. Sean from Sean's Bits Box will be shouting at the screen right now saying, but stone isn't black, and he's right, it's not black. So the end result of this will definitely not be black, but I just like building up from it because it gives it a really nice dark base, and that's just how I prefer it. You can come up from any colour you wish. If you'd prefer to come up from like a brown or a red, then, or a purple even, or that would work really well also. Maybe I'll do that in a future project, but for this one I'm going with black. So I'm going to keep painting this. I'll probably have to pick a slightly smaller brush shortly to go around the details, and I am actually also going to paint the sides just to kind of keep it from being too glaring. So yeah, I'll get that done, and when that's finished and when I'm ready for the next step, I will bring you along. I picked these rock sections up, planning to use them on this diorama, and then forgot about them. They stayed in a pocket actually on my in my coat, and I just found them again. And so now, a bit late, I'm actually going to have to, this is going to cause a little bit of a delay, so I'm going to have to refill in, do some more gravel work and paint again very carefully. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to stick these down just using PVA, so put a dollop of PVA in and then leave that. I was hoping to finish this project today, but that's really not going to happen now, unfortunately. There we are, that's better. But they're really nice shapes, and I really like them, and I really like the way that they've got the contrast of the grey and then the kind of reddy colour. These actually were broken up on my land by a digger that came in to do some work for our garden, so they literally are off our land. So hopefully, hopefully leave that all day and that will set nicely, and then I can fill in the gaps by the sides with some more gravel, and then I'll be able to come in and start painting and finishing up. So yeah, that's I don't want much greenery on this one basically. I want this to be a bit more of a rocky, sparse. I might have some tufts, but I'm not going to put big upgrowing grasses like and plants like I have on the other ones in this series. This is going to be a little bit more stark, I think. So I was going to do a little bit more fill around the bottom of these rocks that I've glued in place, but I've looked at it and decided against it. So what I'm going to do instead is come along with my chocolate brown and dry brush. I'm probably going to need to come in with a smaller brush to get in underneath the rocks, but I'm just going to dry brush this brown over pretty much all of the horizontal surface, just to kind of make it look a little bit like there's some dirt there. But I don't want to brush it over it all, because I'm also going to come in with different colours, greys and blues and what have you, because I want this to look like a rocky outcropping. And the reason why I've left these without fill is I want it to look like they're maybe relatively new, because they do look like freshly broken rocks, and so I think bedding them in may be a little bit wrong. So yeah, there we are. That was a very quick process doing that, and that has now brought that up really, really nicely. If I zoom that in a little bit better, just that super quick dry brush makes such a big difference. So the next thing I'm going to do is come along with some different colours and dry brush those on, but I'm going to wait for the brown to dry completely, so that'll be left for a little bit longer, and after that I can start to do phlox and grass and flowers and wood and other deadfall, and then also try to get the stream in. So this is going to rush to a completion now. This is now into the final stretch. Now that dry brushing has dried, I'm going to make use of these two colours here, so like a cream and this nice rich orange, and I'm going to be looking at applying that to the rock face. Now, I'm not going to do this so much as a dry brush as a heavy overbrush. And I'm going to come in with the lighter colour first and pick out most of the higher areas that I want to have coloured like this, and then I'm going to come along after that with the orange and do a bit more of a dry brushy type application with the orange once this has dried, and then I'll come back with this cream and tie it all together with some more dry brushing. I'm also going to put a little bit of this cream along the track of where I want the stream to be, which comes along here and comes down, and that will then get built up later with more colours. But yeah, the idea is to mirror this to the shades and textures you can see on the rocks that I've glued in place. So I'm trying to tie the whole together. So that's a nice application of that cream. Let that dry, and then we'll come along with the orange and dry brush over. So we'll be back to that in a couple of minutes when it's dried. Okay, so it's been a couple of minutes, not very long, and that is now dry enough for me to come along and put on some orange in places. I might apply it a bit more thickly than that, but I don't want to put too much on. I might put a slap on over here and a slap on there. There we are. So just going to make it look a little bit more interesting. Rocks aren't grey, these rocks are orange and white. So there we are, that's that. So next thing I'm going to do is start to look at the flock and grass, which is going to be on either side here and a little bit at the top. It's not going to be everywhere, it's going to be quite a sparse one. I'm not going to go as crazy as I've done on the other ones in this series. This is going to be just a little bit more rocky, a little bit more kind of like barren, with maybe grasses around where the stream is falling and then the waterfall. So I'll do the grasses and then the waterfall will be the last thing. I'll bring it on when I get to it. So what I'm going to do now is, finally, it has been a long time since I touched this. Been busy with doing other things, but I'm finally going to come along and I'm going to start to put some colour, some greenery onto this base. Now, as I've said, I'm not going to do lots. It's going to be quite a simple, basic colour for a base here. So this is going to be my flock, but what I am going to do is some static grass as well, which I've not done for ages. So this is my terrain glue, which there's a link in the description below of how to make it. It is literally just watered down PVA with washing up liquid. It is not a great mystery. and I'm going to continue using the shop bought flock because I want to get it used up for this, and I actually need to make some more of my own. So just sprinkle it on and let it dry, let the glue dry, and then go back over the top with more terrain glue, let that dry, and then it won't move anywhere. This is a technique I use for terrain pieces for gaming, and it's very hard wearing. So if you're making a diorama like this for display, you never have to worry about it shedding if you do the two glue process. So what I do is I use 2 different colours at least, and sometimes I'll use 3. So I start off and put the first colour on, and then I come along just to give a little bit of variety with a slightly different colour. Now I'll normally start with a darker colour. Honestly, I just wasn't paying attention and started with the lighter colour this time. It doesn't really matter, but yeah, so what you're looking at doing is just adding a little bit of colour and a little bit of variety. This is just to look like patches of grass on a very sparse, very sparsely grassed and rocky kind of part of the world. So there we are. I'll let that dry and then come over and seal it with the glue, like I say. And once that's all dry, then we'll come and do some static grass, and then it's finished. Well, it's not. I need to do the resin. Then I need to do the resin. But we'll do all the static grass and all of the other basing, and then I'm going to do the resin. So I'll bring you back for when I get to do the static grass. Alright, so now we're going to apply some static grass. I've not done any static grassing for a while. Last time was on the model railway, I think. So I've got the small static grass applicator. I've got my Warworld Scenics glue, which I like to use with my static grass. I've just found it to be the best thing. But we're not going to put all that much static grass on. I don't want to overwhelm this. Just a little bit of height, really. So what I am going to do is put a few blobs, and I could probably do this with tufts as well, but I wanted to use my static grass applicator, so there we are. And I'm making use of autumn static grass, and hopefully this is going to work. What we're going to do is we're going to hold it down and get the static grass onto the base, and then when it's dried, that fell off, that wasn't very clever. Now that is a problem with that design. There we are, because it doesn't actually screw on, it's a push fit on this tiny static grass applicator, which is a problem. So I'm going to need to make sure to hold that a bit tighter. I managed to catch most of it. This is actually not going to be very easy. I'm going to hold it right down here like a pen. There we are, that's a bit better. And now, hopefully, it will work a bit better. There we are. Never let it be said that I don't make mistakes. Big shakes. Get lots of static grass coming out. I do have a smaller applicator even than this, but I don't like it even less than this one. My preferred static grass, so I've just knocked that, let's glue that back in, never mind. Not the worst thing in the world. My preferred static grass applicator is huge, but way too big for this, for the space I've got to work in here. So there we are. Right, I've just put lots and lots of static grass all over the place. I've managed to knock my stone off. Yeah, this has been quite a disaster actually, but hey, this is what hobbying can be like. So we can knock a lot of that static grass back into the pot. Any that misses the pot can just get hoovered up. Try and get as much as I can back into the pot though, because I am that cheap. And there you can see we've got quite a nice little tuft of grass sticking up. So I'm going to use tufts on the back. 2 reasons. 1, that was a bit more painful than I wanted it to be. And 2, I do just want to have a little bit more colour at the back. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to glue my stone back down, but I'm going to make use of my stick of glue that I have rather than PVA, because PVA obviously is just not strong enough. Though it has actually broken the stone, as you can see, which is interesting. And then when that's all done, I'll come along, we'll do the resin, and that'll be the last thing. So there we are. First time doing a static grassing for a while. Wasn't the greatest success. But I think it's going to look fine. Alright, so the stone is put back in place now. And what I'm going to do now is put in some tufts just around the edge of this and behind this rock and over the other side, but I'll just do a couple here. And what I've got is a bunch of Geek Gaming stuff. So I've got Geek Gaming Tufts Dead here, and Geek Gaming Tufts Autumn here, and then I've also got some Serious Play, which I really like, just for a little bit more variety of colour. The other thing that I always use is I use PVA as well as these, even though these are supposedly auto adhesive, I always use some PVA. And finally, tweezers. So you want tweezers because otherwise you'll get these stuck to your fingers. So you pull them off the base with the tweezers. They do have an adhesive element, but just dip them in your PVA and then plonk them on your base. And that's it. It really is as simple as that. So I'm going to place a few of these all over. I'm going to need to get some more dead tufts from Luke, actually, looking at it, because yeah, this is my last batch and I've only got a few left. The other thing I've meant to say is I'm going to put a tulip in. I might go back and put a tulip on the first one of these I did, the Dino Rider celebrating coming through the finish line, as I think that might be a nice little theme, a nice little Easter egg to put on all of these different builds that are kind of the same style. So anyway, yeah, let's get this done, and I will come back very shortly to do the resin. Once all this is dried, we'll come and do the resin pour. So yeah, let's just get tufting. Okay, so I need to do a waterfall for this diorama. So what I'm going to do is quickly show you how I go about doing that. So what we've got here is what we call in the UK cling film, and I believe that they call it sarin wrap maybe in America. And it is something which I am rubbish at using, and I certainly avoid using it for food, but it's what you need to use for this next technique, so you just have to kind of suck it up. So get yourself a sheet of this cling film, I'm going to call it that because that's what I know it as, and put it down onto a flat surface, and then get some clear silicone sealant for a bathroom. And what you do is you get a bead of this, and hopefully don't break your tool. That spring went then, and you put a solid bead across straight like this. Now that is the top of where the waterfall is going to be. The next thing you need is a toothpick, and this is quite simple. Hold down the wrap at the top, and what you're going to do is you're going to start dragging down from that top bead in straight lines. And what's important here is that you know what height you're looking at getting, because you can see even with the amount that I've put on, it's only going, what, 6-7 centimeters down. So you're not going to be able to get a huge amount of drop even with quite a lot of silicone sealant. So once we've dragged all this out, and you can see that it's making a really nice waterfall type effect. This is such a cool technique, I really love it. Actually one of the first things I ever did, in my hobby journey, was making waterfalls like this. And I actually still have one of them. One of the ones I made back then. So if you're not getting the length you want, then it's as simple as running another bead of the silicone halfway down and then continue pulling, and you can smudge it and combine it and make the waterfall as long as you want. Now don't go too thin, because otherwise it will not look realistic when it's actually on the model, particularly depending on the size and scale that you're actually looking at. But yeah, that's all you do. There's nothing more to it. And then you let that dry, and when that's dried you can then cut out the wrap and you can make use of it. But I'll show you that tomorrow. I'll leave that dry overnight, and I'll show you the next step tomorrow. But that is how simple it is to make waterfalls using clear silicone sealant. And my waterfalls have dried really nicely overnight, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it down here where it wants to fall, so from this bit down to here. So as I said, the way you do this is you cut it off your sarin, or whatever you want to call it. I think that my shorter lengths would actually have ended up being okay, so I'm just going to grab a tape measure, or not a tape measure, a ruler, and do what I probably should have done yesterday, which is measure the drop. And the drop is about 5 centimeters, And yeah, my shorter ones are going to be okay. So what I'm going to do is leave the longer ones on the wrap and cut out, just using a hobby knife, this section here. So there we are. Just cut that out roughly. I really don't like cling film. It sticks to itself too readily. So what you can see there is we have a nice kind of like the falling pattern that water has. So I'll move that out of the way and get this a little bit closer in. And what we can do is actually cut a little bit more of this wrap away. There we are. So we've got a little bit of a tidier shape. Now, it's too wide, but that's good, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to stick it from the top and cut it down and then layer it underneath as well, so that we have a little bit more volume to the water. So that's the width we want, so we'll get that out of the way. See, it's sticking to me. It's so static, it really does annoy me. Go away. It's still stuck to me. Incredible. Managed to get it off my hands. So we've got a section here which can be, it's going to go the whole way down like you say, and then we've got this little other off cut which I've done, which I can then kind of layer in behind a bit just to give it a little bit more interest. So what I'll do is a little bit of super glue and do the back one like so. There we are. And the super glue is just to grab. We are then, once this is in place, we're going to come along with more of the clear silicone and we will blend it in so that it looks, so that there's actually water coming along the stream edge and water at the bottom. So the super glue is just to grab it and hold it while we're working around the edges. So with that done, let's get to the clear silicone. So we'll grab some toothpicks, because that's what I like to use. And what I've got in this jar here is alcohol, because alcohol is really good for smoothing this silicone sealant, and we want it to be smooth in places and jumping around in others. So what we'll do is run a bead of silicone sealant along the top like so, and you need more than you think you need, if you know what I mean. So don't be shy. And then getting a little bit of alcohol. I mean, the other thing you can use if you want to is a sculpting tool for the more smoother areas. And what you can see is it really does, with alcohol on it, push this silicone sealant very nicely, and it doesn't stick at all to the metal. Whereas without the alcohol, it would be sticking to the metal. So you push that in place. You want to make sure that you're getting silicone sealant over the top of your fulls, because if you don't, then A, it won't look very good, and B, it might actually come unstuck. And then what we're going to do is we're going to do several layers, and then once we've done the top, then we'll do the bottom. So I'll put some music on, and you can watch as I do this. I will bring it slightly more into shot, put some music on, and you can enjoy as I finish this off. There we are, I'm very happy with that. So I'm going to let that dry, and then this piece is finished.
Well then, that was a fun build. Quite easy, quite quick, so a lot of simple techniques, but it really came together to make a lovely diorama which looks great sat on the side in the lounge, is where it is now. And I did find the file in the end. It took a while. It's on Cults, which I don't use very often, so I took a bit of tracking down. I thought I was going to say, sorry, I can't find it, but I did in the end, just now actually, just before I finished editing. So if any of you decide to print it, let me know. I'd love to see that you're printing these things, and maybe send me a picture of what you do. That'd be great. And let me know in the comments below what you think of this build. I read everything, I reply to everything, so don't be shy. Thanks for watching if you made it this far. And as I'm saying at the moment, if any of you are indirectly or directly impacted by the horrible war going on in Ukraine, my thoughts go to you and anyone you know. And to everyone, please do stay healthy, stay safe, and stay well.